Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm your host, Marley Manger, and I am really excited to bring to you a fabulous chat with Gina Gardiner, who I had the huge pleasure of being on her podcast. And I have to tell you, I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts, like a gazillion podcasts. I'm sort of always the bridesmaid, never the bride, except that if you know me well, you know I'm also the bride too. But in this case, I have been interviewed like a billion times. But I was so impressed with Gina and how many podcasts this woman cranks out. And she is so positive and so cheerful and manages to have like really in-depth conversations. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Gina, and I'm going to let her tell you what she does. And hint, we're going to have some great convos about conscious leadership. So Gina, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's nice to be on this side of the fence because, as you know, I do lots of interviewing of other people.
Yeah.
My story starts really in my professional life when I became a teacher. And for the first time, I felt I really had stepped into being who I am. I was good at it and I was promoted very early. So by the time I was 28, I was the deputy head of a large school. And I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. I was the youngest on the staff bar too. And I had a lovely head teacher or principal, if you're listening to this outside the UK. And it was about bringing things forward. And we're talking about 1982. So many of you who are listening won't have even been born then. So for the first 6 months, we worked very hard to create the strategic plan. And then in February 1983, I went skiing. Now, it was my passion. God knows why. I hate the cold. I don't like heights, and I'm not very energetic, but I love to ski. But in those days, it was the fashion to have skis as long as possible.
Oh, yes.
And at Christmas, I had a new pair of skis, an extra 10 centimetres, and I managed for the whole of the week to wrap those 10 centimetres around my neck in one way or another. And on the Thursday, I had a really bad fall, and I split my brand new ski suit from thigh to ankle, an earring through my ear, and I was really shaken.
Yeah.
And so I said to my friends, I'm not going to come with you tomorrow. We'd found a really nice 6-kilometre red run. I'm going to do that, get my confidence back. They said, meet us for lunch, which we did. It's one of those beautiful days. If you don't know skiing, one assumes it's always going to be sort of really cold, but people were skiing in T-shirts and shorts. It was bright sunshine
kind of thing. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I met them and they said, we found this amazing new run. Come with us. So we went up on the chairlift. The mountains looked magnificent. And as we got off the chairlift, I followed them. We'd gone skiing probably about 1 kilometre, and they turned the corner. And then it was pretty evident that it was not the run they were expecting. So instead of being this wonderful red run, we were on a black diamond run.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
With 6-foot moguls. Now, anybody who doesn't know what a mogul is, it's where the snow has been carved by the weather. And they can be like cobbles, just very little, but these were 6-foot monsters. And either side of the ski run was powder snow. So I skied about a third of it, and then I didn't turn soon enough, and I fell. Quite a chunk, really. They, in the meantime, had skied further down the run, and it took me about 20 minutes to get down to them. And they were each sitting on a mogul, like an elf sitting on a mushroom.
Oh, man.
So I took my skis off and I sat on the mogul and we were just chatting. And then suddenly the mogul that I was sitting on gave way.
What? I mean, this is like out of it. Like, okay, keep going. But how do all these things happen? It's just nuts. Skiing is not for you at the moment.
Well, I don't ski now, but and I would say to you at the time I wasn't skiing. I was sitting on my bottom. My skis were off, fortunately, because I think if I'd had my skis on, I may very well have, it could have had more serious consequences. I'm told I fell about 200 feet. The last thing I remember is of hearing a scream and everything going black. And when I came to, we were pretty well at the bottom of the run because there was nowhere to land before that. I'd knocked myself out. It took them a long time to ski down to me. They wanted me to get the blood wagon. I didn't want to, so they helped me back to my hotel. And we were traveling back the next day. Horrendous journey. My mum took one look at me and dragged me off to A&E. And I'd got a bad concussion and I'd trapped a nerve in my neck.
Oh, my Lord.
Fast forward 5.5, 6 weeks, and I was the deputy leader on the borough ski party with 115 school children.
How? Like, how were you even back on the mountain? I would have been just like, I don't even want anything to do with, okay, keep going.
And because we had a medic going with us, I was given permission to go, although I was still not right. But as the week went on, I became more and more like Quasimodo. And on the last day, the kids were doing their races and so on. And when we got back to the hotel, I just said to my colleagues, I've got to go and lie down. I've had it. So I went up to my room. It wasn't a posh hotel, and I was in a bunk. I was on the second bunk. I've no idea how I got up there. And within about half an hour, I discovered I was paralyzed down one side. I couldn't move one side at all.
What?
The children were playing in the corridor, and I didn't want to frighten them. So I had to wait till somebody came to me, which felt like an eternity. And once they did, all hell broke loose and I was carted off to hospital. I was in hospital in Geneva for over a week and then flown back by air ambulance into a local hospital for 2 weeks. And it took me till the end of May to get back to school. I wasn't right, but I could manage school and sleep, and that was about it. And
right.
I thought, well, it's a few weeks till the end of term. I've got 6 weeks then. I can recuperate.
Right.
So the holiday started, and then on the 8th day of the holiday, very early in the morning, I got a phone call from my head teacher's wife. She was absolutely hysterical. She'd found my head teacher, John Hughes, lovely man, had died in his sleep. And so instead of it being a quiet holiday, I helped her organise the funeral. I had to let the staff, the parents, the local authority know. And I became acting head. So the rest of the holiday was preparing for September. And I was acting head for a term. And then in the January 2004, I was appointed to be the head teacher, the principal. And I ran that school for just over 20 years. And I ran it for the most part from a wheelchair. I had 2 lots of failed back surgery syndrome. And after the first one, it took me 18 months to walk to the end of my little garden. 3 months later, I ruptured another disc and I had another failed back surgery syndrome. And I was in completely wheelchair bound between 1998 and 2004 when I had an internal spinal stimulator fitted, which is like a TENS machine, but inside your spine.
But pause, like, how did you go? Like, did they tell you why all of a sudden you're in your bed and then you were just paralyzed? Like, why that kind of delayed reaction?
Well, the initial diagnosis from the University Hospital Geneva was that in the initial accident, the vertebrae had snapped onto the spinal cord and snapped off, thank God, but my spinal cord had been bruised. And that by skiing again, I had irritated the spinal cord. It had swollen and then cut off the nerves to the right side. And so I got function back, but with weakness, I had a real problem with fatigue. Every time they investigated, my body fell apart and I become less and less mobile. So I started using a wheelchair around school in 1987, and then there were periods where I couldn't walk at all and then where I could walk a few steps. So to start with, I would use my wheelchair to get from my office to a classroom. I couldn't physically get the wheelchair into the classroom, so I would then walk into the classroom. But then there were times when I couldn't do that. And it was quite funny after the second back operation. The first one, if I tell you that the surgeon, when I couldn't put my left foot to the floor without fainting, his response was, well, the operation, my dear, was a complete success. It's you who's the failure. But the second time,
oh, hell no. Oh, God, no. Okay, keep going.
The consultant was wonderful. And I'd been back at school 5 months, I think. I was back within 4 days part-time and back full-time within 3 weeks.
Right, the failure patient. Yeah, keep going.
Well, if I was at home, I had daytime TV and reading was all I could do. If somebody hadn't filled the kettle and put a cup down, I couldn't make a cup of tea. But if I went to school, my mouth patently worked, my eyes, my hands, and there were people around. What would you do? It didn't make any difference pain-wise whether I was there or at home. In fact, I felt a lot better doing something useful.
Right.
So 5 weeks on, he said, I think we might think about you going back to school a couple of hours a week. I just laughed and said, I've been back all this time. And for me, there was a huge gift in the disability. And the gift was that because I couldn't physically get into the classrooms, I had to find a very different way of empowering my staff. And I did that through engaging them in taking radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the team. And it was highly successful. The school was one of the first beacon schools. We were on the best 100 schools in the country list twice during my tenure. We won lots of awards and accolades. And it was this approach to engaging people. This is what we want to achieve. This is the vision. You're a big part of delivering that vision and engaging people with taking radical responsibility. And it is the premise of the work that I have done since I left headship in 2004 and started my own business, whether that's with individuals or teams or business leaders. It's at the heart of everything. Because if you think about it, you take radical responsibility for the quality of your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, your words, you can never be a victim.
You're right. Now that I was writing notes as you were talking because I didn't want to forget to come back to all these key points. And there's so many interesting things you've said. What is your definition of radical responsibility?
So most people, when they're thinking, 95% of it is habitual. It doesn't pass through their conscious mind at all.
Right.
So let me give you an example. Somebody talks to you in a particular tone of voice. You don't always hear the words, you hear the tone. And you respond. So it sounds like a critical teacher or your mother moaning because you haven't tidied your bedroom.
Right.
People will bite back. And that edge to their voice will then trigger something in the other person who will then bite back. And before you know, there's a row. And often people, when they take a step back, think, what were we rowing about?
Right.
And so they've done research and they recognize that for the most part, most of us are completely unconscious about the way in which we think. And yet our thoughts drives our emotions, our behaviors, and our language. So if you're conscious of it, and I'll give you an example. I was talking to somebody this morning, and it's somebody that I'm very fond of and I work very closely with. But they were being demanding in a way that I thought was unreasonable.
Okay.
Now, it would have been very easy to say, Oi, I'm not your servant. What did the last one die of?
Right.
But I didn't. I recognized that she was under stress and that I could make that response, but I left it. And later on, I wrote her a message which says, look, I recognize, you think this is important. I believe it is too, but we need to do it in a measured way. Let's take a breath and I'll talk to you later and we'll set up a plan. Now, if I'd done what my first instinct to do this morning,
which is what I'm guilty of usually. Yeah.
I would have had a very different outcome to the conversation I had just before we started recording this, which is, I recognize that in my impatience, I'm actually making it worse. They've had time to reflect because my wording was neutral. I'm not fighting fire with fire.
So and when you say your wording was neutral and you weren't fighting fire with fire, meaning they were coming at you aggressively and you didn't just knee-jerk response and put them back in their place. Yeah. And you were like, wait a minute, I got to change the tone here. So you were being purposeful and taking a minute, assuming that once they took a minute because you know them and they're a reasonable person,
yeah,
it would come back and you would get a better response. You would get to, I would assume, the resolution you.
But even if they had come back to me still in that place, I still have a choice. Do I want to meet like with like?
Mm-hmm.
And I know from experience that when somebody is in a highly charged state,
right,
it's not the time to reason with them.
Right. Okay. What do you do when they're in the highly charged state then?
I think it's very dependent upon the circumstance. But for example, one might have said, look, you're obviously agitated at the moment. I don't want to add to it. I'm not going to have the conversation with you now.
Right.
Okay, let's take a minute. Let's go and make a cup of tea. Cup of tea solves all sorts of things because it breaks the state. I do a lot of work with bosses who say, I'm angry with them. Well, it's never, I would suggest, the time to deal with something when you're angry.
Right.
Nor do you want to leave it. And this is very true for parents as well as for bosses and partners, is to say, we need to talk about this because this isn't acceptable, but I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to say something I regret. I'm going to go get myself under control and then we're going to come back and talk about it. Now, you're giving the message, this isn't acceptable.
Right. And you're not getting a hall pass from having a tantrum
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
And I think that one of the things that many people do is they mix up confrontation with confronting the issue. People avoid confrontation, all right, because they fear either the other person will be aggressive or difficult or that they won't be able to manage it. And so they let things ride. And then usually what happens is they let it ride, and then it really gets to them and they explode. Mm-hmm. And lots of problems, are created because people say, well, I've been doing it for 6 months and you never said anything before now.
Right.
Confronting the issue is saying, Marley, we need to have a conversation about this. I need you to understand that when you are doing this is the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can do it in a very measured, neutral way. And then that person has an opportunity to engage with you in a different way. If you go into any conversation in that highly charged energy, the danger is that then triggers the other person. They then are on the defensive, and you end up with that situation as if you'd backed an animal into the corner. That's when they become most aggressive.
Right.
But I think it's very important that you don't let it go.
Right.
You confront the issue. So you deal with, to confront something is that you actually face up to it, that you actually deal with it. Confrontation is, we are going to be at daggers drawn.
Right.
To confront the issue means the issue is there. I'm not going to let it go, but I'm going to do it in a very measured way.
Right. Right. And how long did that take you to learn to do? Because I will tell you, I'm a failure at that.
Well, I think for me, becoming a head teacher very early, as I said to you, I was the youngest bar 2 on the staff. There was some very interesting characters on the staff. My school was in Romford, which is on the northeast outskirts of London. Mm-hmm. It is intrinsically quite a challenging area where people are quick to fall into being aggressive. And one of the things that I decided very early on in my headship is that we were going to have a zero tolerance of aggression.
Oh, interesting.
Now,
did you communicate that very clearly to them, or was So there was no I didn't know.
So the rules of that are it was really vital that I had to teach my staff how to deal with things without being aggressive. Now, does that mean there was never aggression on the site? No, it doesn't. But we're zero tolerance of it. So if it was a child or a parent or anybody else for that matter, it was dealt with. But we could always say, because before we actually announced it to the parents and to the children, I'd done a lot of training with my staff.
Okay.
And as I said to them, one of us breaks rank and is aggressive to whatever's going on, we've lost the moral high ground. The only way this is going to work is if we are all squeaky clean. So there are always other ways to do it. And you know that you've got the backing of me and the senior staff.
Right.
But if you start to be aggressive, then we can't say zero tolerance of aggression.
Right. Because they can then, I got it. So
we could always say to parents, look, we'll listen to you, but not when you're screaming and shouting. And know that you will always be listened to.
Right.
But screaming and shouting doesn't get you what you want. You can stamp your foot as much as you like.
Right.
But I inherited, for example, the Welsh dragon. And before I was the head there, she'd put her foot through of the floorboard in temper in front of her class. So I needed to make sure that my staff were trained, teaching and non-teaching, in order to make sure that if I wanted to zero tolerance of aggression, make no mistake, I was doing it in terms of developing the staff and the parents and the children.
And I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and, we're in California here, and practically a kid can take a knife to a teacher and it's still somehow they have no culpability. But how, in those kind of situations where, let's say you have a kid who does something that's just totally egregious and there are consequences, and then the parent is like going bananas. Like, walk us through what the scenario would be. Would you let that, they come at you, they go bananas, and you say, listen, happy to listen, but we're going to do it tomorrow? Or like, what is the practical?
So they used to be known as the fluffy slipper brigade because they didn't bother changing out their slippers and their curlers, and they'd come down a very, very long drive and you could see them. So
I love it. I'm gonna.
And it's interesting because one of the first things that I did is I had a settee put in my office, not individual chairs.
Interesting.
And I'd invite them to sit on the settee, and I'd say, would you like a cup of tea or coffee? We had a school cat, and if there was trouble, Sally was always there. Oh. And I would say, and I think part of them is the energy that you use.
Yeah.
And this neutral voice, neutral energy is really important. And so I'd say, I can see you're upset. I'll listen to you, but don't shout at me because I can't hear you as well.
Got it.
And I would just let them blow themselves out. I would listen actively. I would take notes, and most people shout and go on because they don't believe they're going to be listened to.
Got it.
And so that's the first thing. You create a safe space for them to get whatever it is out. And I have to say, the vast majority of times, you're dealing not only with the situation that's just gone on, but, the cat's been sick, the washing machine's not worked, the car's broken down, and then their child has come out and moaned about something that's gone on in school.
Right.
And so the offloading of it diffuses
things. Yeah.
Then you can
air to the balloon, kind of.
Then you can start to say, well, right, let's look at this. Okay. Let's look at what's gone on and why. And then you can have that conversation. Now, did every conversation start out and in that way and finish perfectly? No, it didn't. And there were times when I would have to say to a parent, look, we're going to have to agree to disagree. But in this school, from the parents' handbook and from everything that you've heard from us, that's the line. If your child crosses the line, then there are consequences.
Yeah.
And those consequences are very clear. Every child is treated the same in terms of those consequences. And what would often happen is that when they came in when they were younger and they were being a pain, they would often say, you're too hard. By the time they left the school, they were coming and saying, either I've lost control of them at home, please help me, or thank you very much because what you've done has helped me at home. And we would work with parents and we set up homeschool arrangements so that we were there. And as I said to the parents, you love your child. We care about your child.
Mm-hmm.
We both want the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
their very best. But if you're talking about, your child, it's all right to thump because somebody else has had a go at them, put that into the context of them being 17, 18 in a nightclub,
Right.
and they do that and somebody grabs a bottle or somebody grabs a knife. How much better is it if your child now learns to deal with that in a different way?
Right.
I don't want to be coming to your child's funeral, and I'm sure you don't.
No, absolutely.
But you don't do that to start with. You can't have that sort of conversation until you've diffused the situation. They've had their chance to talk, and then you can talk. And these are principles that work when you're working with a partner, with your children, with your colleagues, with your boss. And if you have a boss, people only think about leading as if it's a downward thing. You've got to lead your boss sometimes, or lead your colleagues.
Right.
And that, I teach being assertive rather than being aggressive. And being assertive is recognizing never fight fire with fire. Don't burn your bridges. It's a long walk round.
Yeah.
That a neutral voice gives you the opportunity to then people hear what you're saying rather than hearing the noise. Right. And I would always criticize the behavior, not the person.
Interesting. So give us an example of that. So give us an example of, like, let's go along with the fluffy, my new favorite, fluffy slipper brigade, and your So what would you say? Like, just give us some made up example.
Well, let me give you an example of how often parents deal with children. You stupid child, you shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a judgment on the child.
On the child. Got it.
That's a really silly thing to do. And do you know what? I'm surprised at you because you're better than that.
Right. Right.
Can you feel the difference between the two? One is you're a silly child installing the belief, I'm silly. And if children believe they're silly, then they behave in that way.
Right.
Rather than, you're much more sensible than that. What's going on? Why am I seeing that?
Right.
You're saying to the child, well, actually, I am better than that.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't happen the first time you say it, but
right.
over time, you're installing a very different belief into that child or adult. And remember, adults are just small children. So the principles are the same, whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we are very good at criticizing, calling ourselves and other people. And these rules work in terms of how we talk to ourselves as well as to other people.
Mm-hmm.
That was a silly thing to do is very different to saying you're a stupid person.
Right. Right. So let's say that you have a scenario where, let's say it's with a colleague or it's somebody that's on your team, right? Yep. And so let's say you're the boss and you have a manager, and that you're, it's very clear what the manager's role is. And then it's very clear, let's say these reports are due every Friday at this time, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And the reports are submitted. And, everybody's supposed to be doing their job. Everybody's busy. And then, you go to check the reports one day and you realize, they kind of got sloppy, or the reports kind of weren't completed every time as they should have been. And then you talk to the manager, right? And then it's, oh, sorry. Okay. I'm going to fix it. But then that kind of behavior continues. What is that? Just if it's very clear what the expectations are and the person says, yes, I get it. And I understand. And no, I don't have any more questions about how to fill it out or what it looks like. And then it slips again. Is that then just a situation where the person isn't suited for the job? Or
again, it's so dependent upon the situation. But one of the techniques that's really helpful if there's a pattern of behavior,
right?
And it's called having the hard conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually initiated by doctors who recognized that if they told patients that they had really bad news,
mm-hmm.
and it was done eyeball to eyeball,
right,
that often that could damage the relationship with people. But if they showed them the scan or the report and said, look at this, the relationship was not damaged. So this is a technique. It's not mine, but I've adapted it. So let's use your example. In the
Yeah.
first instance, the setting high, clear, shared expectations are really, really important.
Yes.
And so you're talking about going along the road, but I'd have already had a conversation with you and said, do you remember when you were appointed and we talked you through and you had training? These reports are really important. I expect them on a Friday and they need to be completed fully.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have had that conversation. And if it happened a second time, I would have said, there's something going on. We had this conversation and we are now back having that same conversation. Mm-hmm. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
If it was still carrying on, one of the things that you can do, it works very well for these patterns of behavior, somebody being late or somebody not delivering on time, is you write down on a piece of paper the date and the what has happened. So 1st of June, report incomplete. 1st of July, report late, incomplete. 1st of August, report incomplete. And you write your list. And you say to the person, Marley, I want to have a conversation with you about reports. And we're going to have that conversation at a time that's convenient to you. When shall we meet? Mm-hmm. So there's no surprises. You're not trying to catch people out.
Right.
You never do it in front of other people. You sit them down and you say, we've spoken a few times about the importance of these reports being complete and being on time. Mm-hmm. And I'm really concerned that it's not happening. Mm-hmm. You hand them the piece of paper and you say, here is my report of how often your reports are incomplete, late, or both. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then you sit on your tongue. What most bosses do is they do the answering for the other person. Mm-hmm. And you wait. And then they speak. And when they've spoken, it could, if you need extra training, then you need to let us know. If there's a problem at home, then let us know. But these are critical to the company and they are not negotiable. Mm-hmm. And then out of that, you might then say, so I'm going to put you on a 2-month probation. If you do not complete them on time and completely, as they're supposed to be, then we will be going down the disciplinary or the competency route.
Right.
That choice is yours. Yeah. Now, if there's a family difficulty that perhaps you weren't aware of, then you might negotiate something slightly different.
Right.
But you don't let them off the hook.
Yeah.
But it's done in a very calm, very neutral, very measured way. Mm-hmm. They've already had chances. You've told them. Now it's getting serious. But what this also does is you've got your evidence base.
Right.
And then you say, what I'd like you to do, Marley, is we've agreed the way forward. I want you to email me your understanding of that agreement.
Yeah. That's
so
a great one.
You don't put it in writing to them.
No, right.
You ask them to put it in writing to you. And if you think about it, I could give that to you. They could ignore that.
Right.
But if it's coming from them, my understanding of what we have agreed is blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. They can't turn around and say, I didn't know.
Right. Right.
All becomes evidence if you do need to go down either the competency route or the disciplinary route. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get there. So in order not to get there, ideally, how you set up these expectations are really, really important. So when you were inducted into that part of the job, Marley, these reports are critical. There is no room for error. You've had training. If you feel you need more, you must let me know. Mm-hmm. But they must be on my desk, complete, on the 1st of every month.
Right.
There is no wriggle room here.
Right.
Now, very often, that conversation doesn't happen before you start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meaning it doesn't happen like, these are the reports that are due on these days?
Well, the people say, but they'll say, these are all the reports, but they don't say they're critical. And they don't say
the key piece
that it's not negotiable.
Okay. Those are the key words then. Yeah.
So let me give you another example. I left headship 20 years ago. I've had my own business and I've worked with business owners since then. And these principles work for everybody. It doesn't matter what your widgets are.
Right. Right.
They were. When I appointed staff, I would have a conversation before the interview started.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, this particular conversation was with young staff starting. If you're going to come to this school, we expect you to work hard. We don't do moods here. That everything is about helping kids reach their potential and for you to support one another as staff in order to get the best out of each other and out of the children. If that's not what you want, then now is the time to say and save yourself time and us time. What you can expect from us is support, lots of opportunities for training and development, a nice working environment, and to know that actually we're going to care about you personally and professionally.
Right.
So then if you're talking about young teachers, they'd go out on the lash on a Saturday night. They'd come in on Monday morning grumpy because they'd had a hangover.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, I would very quietly go up to them and say, do you remember that conversation we had when you were appointed?
Mm-hmm.
Don't do moods. If you're going to go out on the lash, that's fine. But don't be grumpy with the kids and your colleagues because they don't deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd never do it again.
Got it. And if let's say they do it again. Let's say they take a while and it's, I don't know, it's a month and a half later, slip back into the pattern.
They would get 2 bites of the cherry and then they would come in and I would have a much stronger conversation with them and say, you are paid from coming in first thing on Monday morning. You know, I want you to think about when you're grumpy with that child and that child is upset all day and goes home and how is that fulfilling your duties as a teacher to give your child the children in your class the very best opportunity. If you're that grumpy that a child's been upset all day, I want you to think about what you're doing. Are you in the right profession?
Right. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say, because I'm thinking of listeners, who, this applies to moms, this applies to teachers, this applies to people in the work. It's universal. That's why it's so terrific. So let's say that you go over something and you say, these are the reports and you train them and and these are due every Friday at all this stuff. Okay. And this is what's involved. And they say, yes, I understand. And then, as I say, it still slips. Would a lot of that slipping probably not happen because you've got that step of, now you tell me what we agreed to?
In my experience, and this is not just from my own organization, but from working with a wide range of different businesses, from small SMEs to big organizations, if this is handled well, I would say 99 times out of 100, the problem gets solved. On that 1% where it's entrenched and they're not going to move, they're not the right person for your organization.
Right.
And so you go down either, depending on the situation, the competency or the disciplinary route. But what you have got then, because you've been through the process in the way I describe, is all of your evidence is there.
Right.
So that when you do go through that route, you are squeaky clean and they can't turn around and say, I'm going to take you to court because you dealt with me unfairly.
Right. And I find what's interesting, at least for me, as tough as I am on certain things, or certainly as tough as I am with myself and as tough as I am with there are certain personality types that for me, that they, okay, yes, I get it. I understand. And then you go, okay, everybody, great, we got it. And you move on. Things go well for a bit. And then it slips back. And then it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was sick, whatever. I was out. I was on vacation. My work piled up, whatever the reason is going to be. And then it's okay, but we got to get back on track. Right. And then it's yes. And then it goes, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
You have to look at the pattern. And if you've got the pattern, then the hard conversation, what I've noticed is every 2 or 3 months we go through this.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a great thing. That's the key piece, I think, is when you're saying, once you've got the pattern.
And whether it's a repeated single activity. So, for example, being late
Right.
is a very simple example of that. And saying to somebody, I want you to, they've looked at the list. I want you to add up how many minutes over the last 6 weeks have you been late?
Right. Right.
Now, you do realize that effectively you're stealing from the company.
Right.
Yeah. Now that works if somebody's contracted on an hourly rate. It doesn't quite work if somebody is salaried.
Right.
And I think this has got to be put into context. If you've got somebody who's salaried, who does huge amounts of work, and in every other way that they are pulling their weight big time, and they have an Achilles heel, which is a particular thing, you would deal with that differently.
So how would you deal with it? Because that certainly comes up where you've got a top performer in sales. Everything is, that report is just always incomplete, but you're going, God, but they, as I say, they're the top performer, the top manager that everybody loves. But there's that one thing that they
then you have to decide, and it's an equation. Am I going to find a different way to get those reports done? And sometimes actually what's in the business's best interest is to say, look, we've tried this any which way. You're really good at everything else. It's just this one thing. I'm going to get somebody else to do that report. Because on balance, I value you as a significant contributor. I just want you to know that actually don't let anything else slip, because I won't do this a second time with something else.
So you kind of, it's like, listen, I'm going to, because 99 out of 100 things is so great, I'm going to reassign this one thing, but we're now going to start reassigning number 2 and number 3 and number 4.
So you nip that right in the bud. It is about setting the expectation straight away. But if you have got, there's another way of doing it. So I had a member of staff who would never get his lesson plans in on time. It was like pulling teeth. Okay.
I feel better knowing that you've even had these scenarios.
So what I said to him, right, I'm fed up with chasing. Okay. You're going to chase everybody, and your job is to get everybody's reports in. Okay. And you can have a taste of what it's like and the knock-on effect. You're going to be responsible for it. And if it's not in place, everybody's going to come to you and moan at you. And I then said, I'm going to let everybody know in staff meeting that's what's happening, but I'm letting you know first. After 3 weeks of having moans from everybody and him chasing, he came back to me and said, I can't apologize enough. I didn't know what a pain in the backside it was. So it's horses for courses. And
what does that mean?
Horses means that what works in one situation with one person may not work with somebody else. And it's easy to talk after, I'm 72. I started teaching at 21. And although I left school in 2004, my role in terms of developing and teaching and working with people has just changed in terms of where I do it, really, because people are people. And so, there was trial and error to start with. It wasn't, magically on a Monday morning, all of this was in place.
I'm glad you're saying this. So for everybody who's listening, who's going, oh gosh, that sounds so obvious, or it sounds so basic, but I haven't been doing it. I've been at it for whatever. I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely. And, when I work with people, they say, exactly what you've said. But what I'm saying to people is, use the benefit of my hindsight. You don't have to make all of the mistakes. You can go straight for a range of solutions that do work. They don't all work with everybody. Across the piece, one of them will work with everyone. Yeah. But I think the lesson is you've got to be consistent. You've got to be prepared to set the expectations and collect the evidence. And for me, this whole business of being neutral in your approach, confronting the issue, not letting it go, because lots of people let it go to the performance management bit. And then people say, what? I've been doing it all year and you've not said anything. And then the other thing to be very, very mindful is people use euphemisms. It's not good enough.
Right.
Or they talk about we're aiming for excellence, but what the hell does that look like in the context of where you are? And so breaking that down as a team in the context of, so I'll give you an example. I'm working with a hotel, had terrible reputation. And one of the biggest areas of complaint was about cleanliness. So worked with the senior manager for housekeeping. And we set up a series of workshops with her staff, each one looking at a different element. What does excellence look like in the context of cleaning a bathroom? What's the difference between good and excellent? So what is our gold standard? And what about cleaning a bedroom or cleaning the corridors?
So you literally showed them this is...
No, they talked about it. They came up with it.
Oh, got it.
They'd got ownership of it then.
Oh, got it. They told you what excellence was.
And we had a discussion, and there were exercises to help them. But by the end of each session, they had the gold standard criteria, which was then adopted, and everybody worked to those. And if a new member of staff came in, one of the others would mentor them and go through that so that they would understand. Now, that hotel within a year was turned around and was getting awards.
Yeah.
It works. But you've got to be sequential and you've got to be consistent.
Yeah. I think those are two great, terrific points that I think we can use for anything. Kids, management, discipline for working out, whatever.
Yeah.
Sequential and consistent. I love it. Well, Gina, I could talk to you all day long, and I can understand why you talk to people and interview people all the time, because your wisdom is just, it's profound, but some of it is quote obvious, but not obvious how to actually put it into play. So tell everybody what it is you do now, how they can find you, all that good stuff.
So I work in a variety of ways. I do keynote speaking, and I love to speak to groups of people across a whole range of different leadership and personal development themes. I also work one-on-one with people, but people who really want to accelerate their journey. And very often that is around their personal leadership, their spiritual and professional or personal development. I work with teams, whole organizations. If I'm working with organizations, generally it's on a longer basis, so that things get truly embedded.
Right.
As you know, I'm a radio host, and so I engage people through that. I'm an author. I've got lots of books if you go onto Amazon. If people want to reach me, they can go to the website, which is genuinely-u.com, or they can go to ginagardinerassociates.co.uk, or email me is probably the easiest, which is Gina, Gina, at genuinely, then a hyphen, then the word u.com, Gina at genuinely-u.com. And if you're interested in a free leadership blueprint, and it's not just for leaders, it's for you as an individual as well, have it completely for free. Just email me at Gina at genuinely-u.com, and we will send you a free PDF of that. And that's really about doing an audit in terms of where are you?
Right.
Where are the areas that you need to work on? And it's something that you can pick up and look at a section. There's 5 different sections within it. And I just wanted to make it open to anybody so that, whatever your circumstances, as long as you've got access to the internet, you can download it.
Yes. I love it. Well, Gina, this has been jam-packed with information, yet it's like listening to you is like a lullaby. I mean, you're just like, okay, whatever you say, Gina. Like, I just want to be like, yes, I can see the fluffy slipper brigade coming in going, bah, 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 bah. And then by the time they leave Sally, the cat, and the tea and the whole thing, you're just like, thank you, Gina. I love you. And I'm having a problem with my husband. Could you help? I mean, it's.
I have to say that that's happened more than once.
I am not surprised. So, Gina, the magician from across the pond, I cannot thank you enough
for
for being on Every Day's a Train Wreck. And let me tell you, you've helped a lot. I can already tell you, you've helped, you're going to, as soon as they listen, help a lot of moms, a lot of managers, a lot of frustrated entrepreneurs with this podcast. And again, I can't thank you enough. So Gina Gardiner, everybody. And the website is genuinely-you, right? .com. Okay, perfect. I love it. Okay, well, this is Marley Major wrapping up another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. And if you are not following us on Instagram at The Profit Goddess, please make sure you do. And please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts, a 5-star review if you are so inclined. And most importantly, give a comment, give a shout out, and go ahead and follow up with our guests and let them know how much you loved the episode. All right. Until next time, thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.